The briefing room was awash with tension that was thicker than spilled motor oil. The flickering holograms cast a long, grotesque shadow of star charts filled with warnings, red triangles, and menacing hazard symbols. Eden, the planet we dared to reach, pulsed like a malevolent star, the only splash of vivid green on the otherwise cold, black navigation map. "You know the protocol," Admiral Owens said. His voice, normally a booming baritone, was an unconvincing rasp in his throat. "The Council's banned expeditions to Eden for a good reason. Do you understand the gravity of this mission, Captain Ramirez?" I did, and while a small part of me, a long, dormant spark of fear from my rookie days, whispered of ancient prophecies in the charred husks of expeditions past, another voice rose, the voice of ambition, defiance, and the insatiable itch at the back of my mind that the universe held secrets the galaxy wasn't ready for, and humanity would be the ones to unlock them. "Understood, sir," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Eden is classified as uncharted and unexplored. Any prior expeditions are considered apocryphal, and the potential gains outweigh the hypothetical risks." Behind me, my team shifted. I knew their minds echoed mine, a mix of apprehension and thrill-seeking bravado. Anya, our xenobiologist, was practically salivating, her eyes locked onto the planet's data feed like a predator. The rest? Well, they'd signed up for this insanity, hadn't they? The Admiral sighed. "Very well. The Council expects this to be a milk run. Probe, scan, report, and retreat. But if something goes wrong out there, Ramirez, you leave no one behind. You get your crew home safely. Is that clear?" "Crystal, sir," I answered, meeting his aged eyes levelly. I walked out of the briefing room knowing that none of the Council old-timers expected us back, but that sat just fine with me. Humanity wasn't in the business of retreating, not when there was an entire world ripe for conquering. Our ship, the aptly named Ulysses, sliced through real space like a scalpel. The slipstream hummed with restless energy. It mirrored our own pent-up anticipation. 4 days of FTL travel left us jittery as caged beasts, itching for the thrill of ground beneath our feet, even if that ground was likely teeming with things that wanted to devour us. Yet, as Eden loomed larger and larger in our viewports, there was no doubt, no hesitation. We were here, and by the void we would see this mission through. "And bio readings are off the charts, Captain." Our pilot, Lieutenant Harris, whistled as he zoomed in on a specific region. "And it looks like a damn rainforest, but those energy signatures don't match anything in the database." Anya was plugged into the sensor feed, frantically sifting through the data. "It's the sheer density," she muttered, more to herself more than us. "Each life form, if that's what they even are, is overlaid, symbiotic. It makes my head spin just trying to isolate one signature." The bridge fell silent as we watched Eden spread out below, a riot of emerald green laced with phosphorescent blue rivers. Even from orbit, we could feel its untamed power, a pulse that matched the excited thrum of my own heart. "All right, people," I addressed the crew, the adrenaline of imminent action coursing through me. "Saddle up and strap in. We're going down." The descent was rough. Atmospheric density readings had proved woefully inaccurate, the air thick as soup and our shuttle bucking like a spooked stallion. Anya swore a string of curses that would make a hardened drill sergeant blush, while Harris wrestled with the controls with a manic grin. Then came the landing, or rather the crash landing. A giant, grasping vine, thick as a redwood trunk, snagged our shuttle out of the sky and sent us careening into a clearing of impossibly tall trees. "Everyone alive?" I barked into the comm as the world stopped spinning and my ears stopped ringing. Groans and a few colorful confirmations were music to my ears. "Miracles do happen," Anya said, her voice shaky but the fire still burning in her eyes. "Let's make this trip count." The hatch hissed open, and for the first time, human boots touched the soil of Eden. Eden was nothing short of an alien dreamscape. The air hung heavy with humidity, saturated with vibrant scents that pricked at our senses like 1,000 exotic spices. Buoyant luminescent tendrils dangled from the towering canopy, casting an ethereal glow over the vibrant ground cover, which writhed with fleshy leaves and flowers in colors that defied earthly physics. "This isn't another jungle," Anya murmured, her gaze sweeping the panorama. "It's an entirely different ecosystem, built on principles we've never seen." "And the locals seem eager to greet us," Harris muddled wryly. His warning came a heartbeat too late. A monstrous shape, insectoid and gleaming with iridescent chitin, erupted from the undergrowth directly in our path. Mandibles clicked like shears the size of my arm, and acidic compound eyes stared with a primal hunger. Before we could even raise weapons, the creature lunged. I saw the glint of teeth, the flash of deadly claws, and then a blur of motion. Sergeant Jacobs, our hulking security officer, tackled the creature midair. a primal battle cry ripping from his throat. They crashed to the forest floor in a tangle of limbs, a grotesque ballet of predator and prey. Gunfire erupted, tearing through the alien beast's thick hide as Anya and I dragged Jacobs clear. "It's a nice welcoming committee," I grumbled, checking Jacobs for injuries. His armor was shredded, but beneath it, his skin was unbroken, just a few scratches. "Tough as a rhino, that one," Jacobs wheezed, a bloody grin splitting his bearded face. "Lucky for me," he raised his blaster eyes, narrowing, "and not so lucky for the bug." I turned just in time to see the insectoid monster twitch for the last time as Plasma Blast reduced it to a smoking pile of chitin. The others closed in, faces tight with a mixture of fear and the wild thrill of surviving the first encounter. Even Anya's hands were steady as she deployed the bioscanner to study the remains. "Let's not get complacent," I barked. "This is just a taste of things to come. Now move out, team, and keep your eyes peeled." Eden was beautiful, a testament to the raw power of nature, but it was also a war zone, and we were the invaders. The following days were a whirlwind of peril and discovery. Every step deeper into the bioluminescent jungle brought new dangers. Giant, armored predators lurking beneath the surface of deceptive bogs. Plant life with needle-sharp thorns that secreted paralyzing neurotoxins. Packs of reptilian creatures that hunted by sound, forcing us into stretches of terrifying silence. Each encounter was a brutal test of our adaptability, our ingenuity, and our raw tenacity. It pushed us to the limit. Lieutenant Harris sported a hastily patched gash from a razor leaf vine. Anya's hands shook as she concocted antidotes from the various poisons that had tried to kill us. And I saw darkness in my own reflections, a ruthlessness I hadn't known I possessed. Every order I gave felt further from the idealistic explorer I'd been and closer to the hardened soldier I needed to become. Yet we made progress. Anya's tireless studies yielded a stunning revelation. Eden's ecosystem wasn't just alien, it was actively evolving at a terrifying rate. The creatures, the plants, they were adapting to our presence in real time. A deadly evolutionary arms race where we were hopelessly outmatched. If we didn't find what we were looking for soon, then, on the 7th day, a breakthrough. Our scans detected a faint energy signature buried deep beneath the heart of the densest jungle. A signature matching no known natural phenomenon. Hope. A flickering flame I thought extinguished tentatively reignited within me. Could this be it? Anya breathed, her eyes wide with desperate excitement that mirrored my own. The source of all the warnings? It's one way to find out, I replied, the thrum of determination once again replacing the cold edge of fear. Let's gear up. We're going in. The trek to the anomaly was an ordeal. Eden unleashed its full arsenal of horrors against us as if sensing our goal. But we persevered, a unit forged in fire and forged stronger still by the relentless onslaught. Finally, sweating and bleeding, but driven by the intoxicating scent of discovery, we reached our destination. The ground gave way to a massive clearing, a scar amidst the relentless green, and at its center, partially overgrown with phosphorescent lichen and moss, stood a structure. Gleaming metal and smooth, dark glass formed a half-buried dome, a ruin in the heart of this untamed world. A shiver ran down my spine. Not of fear, but of awe. This was undeniably artificial, the first unequivocal sign of intelligent life on Eden. Any notion of a milk run evaporated in that instant. We're not dealing with just an unknown ecosystem, Anya whispered. Someone built this. Someone lived here. The structure was eerily silent. I raised a hand signaling our team into a tactical formation. With weapons at the ready, we approached the dome, searching for any sign of a potential threat. Nothing. No life signs, no movements, Harris muttered, his voice tense. Doesn't mean it's empty, I warned. I tapped my comm unit. Jacobs, stay topside and set up a perimeter. If anything comes out of that jungle, light it up. Jacobs acknowledged the order with his usual gruff growl. The rest of us moved closer, the silence pressing in, amplified by the anticipation pounding in my chest. The structure was surprisingly well preserved. We found what must have been an entrance, a section of smooth metal that slid aside with a mechanical sigh that hadn't been heard in, well, who knows how long. Beyond lay darkness, the yawning maw of an ancient mystery. I flicked on my helmet light, its beam shattering the gloom. The interior of the dome was a stark contrast to the wild world outside. Corridors built in sleek, clean lines, their floors littered with debris and their walls covered in faded symbols, a language indecipherable to ours. The sense of something long gone, something hauntingly familiar, hung thick in the air. Anya, sensors? I asked, the eerie quiet pricking at my nerves. Nothing alive, but there's an energy signature. It's faint, but incredibly dense. It's coming from further in, she said, already tracing a path deeper into the belly of the structure. We followed, my own caution overridden by a sense of destiny, a feeling that Eden had been leading us here all along. It was as if the planet itself whispered to us, a siren song we couldn't resist. The deeper we ventured, the sense of desolation giving way to the distinct signs of something not abandoned but destroyed. Scorch marks marred the walls, sections of the corridor lay collapsed, and the debris changed from dust and forgotten detritus to shards of what must have been advanced technology. Whatever happened here, it wasn't peaceful. The energy signature pulse grew stronger with every step, guiding us like an unseen beacon. Finally, we reached the heart of the structure, a vast circular chamber bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Anya gasped, her scientific mind overwhelmed by the impossible sight. By the laws of physics, she trailed off, her hand brushing against something invisible. It rippled, responding to her touch with tendrils of vibrant light. An energy field. Harris breathed, his weapon lowering slightly in awe. Floating in the center of the field was the source of it all, an orb of shimmering, pulsing energy. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a nexus of power far beyond our comprehension. Each pulse ripped through the field, through us, touching something primal within me, a feeling both alien and utterly familiar. Whispers started at the edge of my mind, fragments of images, emotions, a sense of overwhelming loss, and desperate warnings. Suddenly, the orb flared, the energy field surging. Anya cried out, thrown back against the wall by an invisible force. My ears rang, my vision blurred, and the whispers turned into deafening roars. I stumbled, my knees buckling as a terrible understanding wormed its way into my consciousness. "Captain!" Harris's voice seemed distant, panicked. "Something's not right." But I knew. The warnings, the reason this place was forbidden. Eden wasn't just hiding incredible resources. It was a prison, and we had just broken the lock. My vision swam, the world spinning into a vortex of light and chaos. Anya's frantic shouts faded as I fought the overwhelming force bearing down on my mind, a relentless psychic maelstrom. Images flickered before me, a civilization impossibly advanced, gleaming spires, and something monstrous, a writhing mass of shadow and malevolence. Its unfathomable hunger clawed at my sanity, threatening to consume me entirely. Then, like a thread snapping, the voices in my head cut off. I gasped, collapsing to my knees, my chest heaving as if it had just run a marathon. Harris was next to me, concern etched across his face, while Anya scrambled to her feet, her eyes blazing with a mix of horror and fascination. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I think," I rasped, my throat raw from silent screams, "we just released the very thing Eden was meant to contain." The dome shook, a mournful groan echoing through the ancient structure. The energy field surrounding the orb flickered, pulses of darkness now intermingling with dazzling light. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding. "We need to warn the council," I barked into my comms. "Jacob, status report, come in!" Static. Nothing. Fear constricted my throat. Eden had cut us off. We were utterly alone. Suddenly, the air crackled and the orb pulsed with blinding intensity. A tendril of pure shadow snaked out, writhing across the floor, extending with unnatural speed towards us. "Weapons fire!" I roared, regaining my composure. Blaster bolts streaked across the chamber, blasting chunks out of the shadow tendril, but the monstrous appendage reformed almost instantly, continuing its relentless advance. Another tendril shot out, this one aiming for Anya. She barely dodged, her face pale with terror. It's sentient!" she cried. "And it's hungry," I muttered grimly. "Retreat! Fall back to the entrance!" Staying to fight was suicide. Whatever this creature was, we were no match for it. Somehow, against the odds, we had to get this information out. Humanity needed to know what we had unleashed. Retreat turned into a panicked scramble. The once empty corridors of the structure now writhed with tendrils of darkness, the monstrous entity surging from its prison with impossible speed. We fired wildly, more out of desperation than hope, as the shadows snaked around our defenses, snatching at our legs and weapons. Harris yelped, dragged down by an unseen force, and only a well-timed shot from Anya searing through the gloom saved him from being consumed entirely. "We're not gonna make it!" Harris shouted over the deafening roar of our blasters and the inhuman screeching that filled the dome. He was right. The exit seemed impossibly distant, the tendrils closing in, faster, relentless. My mind raced, searching for a miracle, a sliver of hope. And then I remembered. "The energy field," I gasped out. "Back to the chamber!" If this thing was born of energy, maybe the field could contain it again, at least long enough to buy us precious time. We swerved, a desperate gambit against the encroaching shadows. Harris limped beside me, his face streaked with a grime and a fierce determination mirrored in my own eyes. Anya, despite her trembling hands, never wavered. Her scientific curiosity battled alongside a newfound will to survive. Reaching the chamber felt like a century. The creature screamed in a fury as we darted across the threshold, the energy field flaring in response to its onslaught. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed to hold back the shadows, buying us a precious few seconds to regain our breath. But only seconds. Cracks spiderwebbed through the field, the orb within pulsed erratically, and the monstrous shadow began to seep through. "Anya, that orb!" I shouted, my voice ragged. "It's the key! Can you shut it down?" She was already racing toward the console, her fingers flying over the unfamiliar glyphs with a speed born of desperation. I could feel the pressure of the creature building against the field, a maddening scratching from beyond reality clawing at the edges of my soul. "Almost there!" Anya cried. Then it broke through. The tendril slithered into the chamber like a living oil spill, a physical manifestation of utter malevolence. We retreated, forming a desperate circle around Anya as she worked with frantic concentration. Harris limped, blaster at the ready, and I stood between them in the encroaching nightmare, my pulse thrumming a death march in my ears. It lunged. Anya screamed. Time seemed to slow, a warped bubble as the shadow whipped towards her. I threw myself sideways, slamming into her and knocking her from the tendril's path. Pain exploded along my ribs. My world tilted and blurred with a sickening crunch. The darkness curled around me, 1,000 icy whispers seeping into my mind, promises of oblivion and despair. I fought to hold on, to cling to the fragments of my sanity as blackness threatened to consume me. Distantly, I heard Anya's horrified shout, the roar of Harris's blaster. Then, a blaze of light. The dome shook, the creature roared in agony, and the shadows receded with a hiss like steam venting. "It worked!" Anya cried, her voice a sob of release. I blinked, spots dancing in my vision. The energy field crackled around us, holding the writhing tendrils at bay, but the orb within spasmed violently, spewing arcs of chaotic energy. Harris was beside me, dragging me towards Anya, who fumbled with the controls. "It's overloading!" she shouted over the cacophony. "We have to vent the energy or the whole structure will go up!" "How?" I rasped, my fractured ribs stabbing with every breath. "Manually!" She gestured wildly to a network of conduits snaking across the ceiling. "If we trigger a simultaneous release..." "You'll never reach them all in time," I finished. The conduits were spread too far, too high. Harris limped forward, his face grim. "I'll buy you time." No argument could sway him. We all knew what this meant. He raised his blaster, aimed at the conduit network, and started firing. Each blast echoed like a death knell. The shadows thrashed against the flickering field, sensing weakness. The monster's hunger reignited. The shadows thrashed against the flickering field. Sensing weakness, the monster's hunger reignited. "Captain, it's been an honor." Harris's voice crackled, but his smile was steady. "Likewise, Lieutenant." I saluted him, a warrior honoring another. Anya and I turned and sprinted towards the orb. A final tendril lashed out, snagging my leg. I sprawled to the ground, scrambling desperately. Anya knelt beside me, her fingers a blur on the console, the room filled with the creature's rage. "It's done!" she yelled. "Now!" Above us, the conduits exploded in a spray of light and superheated vapor, venting the volatile energy into the dome. There was a final, deafening roar, a tremor which shook the very foundations. And then, silence. I lay there, staring up at a now inert orb, my mind sluggish and body aflame. Anya knelt next to me, her eyes bright with unshed tears, searching my face. "Captain, you're hurt," her voice broke. And then, impossibly, I laughed. It was weak, choked, but a laugh nonetheless. Humanity had touched a star and gotten burned. But we would heal, we would learn, and whatever darkness the galaxy had, we would be ready to face it. We survived Eden, and we would tell our tale.